Chapter 6, The World of Pele. After the injured muscle in his leg finally healed, Pele returned to his high-scoring ways. Santos won several championships, including one among all the clubs in South America. In 1965, Pele finally asked Rose Marie's parents if he could marry her. Though he was used to playing in front of thousands of people, Pele was nervous. He went fishing for a day with Rose Marie's father. Pele asked if he could marry Rose Marie. The two men continued to fish, but her father never gave Pele an answer. After a long day on the water, he told Pele, "We'll see." Finally, after they had met with Rose Marie's mother, the marriage was approved. Pele and Rose Marie were married by a priest at his parents' house in 1966. Because he was so famous, Pele's fans had filled the streets outside, hoping to see the couple. They could not leave the house for hours. For their honeymoon, Pele and Rose Marie toured Europe. They went to France, Switzerland, Germany, Austria, and Italy. In Rome, he got the chance to introduce Rose Marie to Pope Paul VI. When they returned to Brazil, it was time to get ready for the 1966 World Cup, and the other teams heading to England for the matches were ready to take on Brazil. In games against both Bulgaria and Portugal, the opposing players knew that they had to defeat Pele to win their matches against the Brazilian team. And so again and again, players fouled Pele, kicking him in the legs. The other athletes' shameful behavior injured Pele's body and also his pride. He no longer wanted to play for his national team. Portugal won their third game, and Brazil was out of the World Cup. In 1967, Pele had a very busy year. After Rose Marie gave birth to Kelly Cristina, their first child, Pele visited the United States with Santos. His appearances there set records for the biggest crowds up to that time in U.S. soccer history. Even in a nation where soccer was not that popular, Pele was well known. Later in the year, he visited Africa, including stops in Senegal, Nigeria, and Congo. He was mobbed everywhere he went. To these people who had little possibility of ever escaping the crushing poverty in which they found themselves, I somehow represented a ray of hope, he wrote later. In 1969, the Santos team was on another tour of Africa. The people of the Nigerian state of Biafra were at war with each other. However, people on both sides of the fighting wanted to see Pele play. For 2 days, the fighting stopped. Pele and Santos played, and the war resumed once they had left Nigeria. This single event showed just how big an international star Pele really was. Meanwhile, reporters in Brazil had been keeping careful track of Pele's scoring. They determined that he had scored nearly 1,000 goals during his professional career. A countdown began. Finally, on November 19, 1969, he scored on a penalty kick to reach the magic number. Fans poured onto the field and lifted him high on their shoulders. Photographers crowded around him. His jersey was pulled off and a new one put on. Instead of a shirt bearing his famous number 10, the new jersey read 1,000. Only a very few players had ever scored that many goals, and none had been as famous as Pele. Even as fans showed their love for him, Pele returned it. In a speech to the crowd, he thanked them for their support. He also urged them to help the young people of Brazil who were living in poverty. Pele never forgot that his own youth had not been easy.